It began as a faint dot in the blackness of space, too dim, too distant, too ordinary to care about. But that tiny light has now become one of the most baffling mysteries in modern astronomy. The object known as 3I Atlas is no ordinary comet. Its approach toward Mars has stunned scientists, not because of what it's doing, but because of what it refuses to do. It doesn't behave like a comet, doesn't shine like one, and it certainly doesn't move like one. Its chemical makeup is alien to anything we've ever seen. Its trajectory defies probability, and the coincidences surrounding its path are too precise to ignore. As 3I Atlas neared Mars, it didn't just pass by. It revealed something that feels less like random motion and more like intent. What this interstellar visitor is hiding may be bigger than any discovery in our lifetime. When researchers first analyzed 3I Atlas's chemical composition, they expected the same recipe found in every frozen traveler from the outskirts of space: water ice, hydrogen compounds, and traces of carbon dust. But what they found flipped that expectation upside down. Atlas contains massive amounts of carbon dioxide, smaller portions of carbon monoxide, and only a trace of water, an exact inversion of what defines a normal comet. Its chemistry doesn't match the frozen edges of a young star system. Instead, it mirrors something far closer to home, the atmosphere of Mars, where CO2 dominates and oxidation processes prevail. This means that 3I Atlas may not have formed in a cold, distant cradle of ice, but in a planetary environment, rich in minerals and shaped by heat. Some scientists now suspect that this object could be a fragment of a world like Mars, torn away eons ago and wandering through interstellar space until gravity brought it back. But there's one question that haunts them all. Did it come back on its own? Its path through the solar system doesn't look random. As 3I Atlas traveled inward, it performed a sequence of near-perfect maneuvers, brushing close to multiple planets, yet narrowly avoiding Earth. Each gravitational assist seemed intentional, guiding it in a triangular orbit that aligned with the plane of the solar system. And when it reached the sun's glare, it slipped directly behind it, disappearing from our instruments as though hiding from view. Then, when it re-emerged, it wasn't heading toward us. It was aimed straight toward Mars. To astronomers, it almost looked as if the object had planned the route, using gravitational forces with surgical precision to reach a single destination. When it passed by the red planet, it flared in brightness for no known reason, releasing gases that should have altered its course. But somehow, its trajectory remained untouched, unaffected by jets of material or solar winds. It was as if the object were anchored, not drifting but navigating. If its path wasn't enough, its chemistry deepened the mystery. Instruments detected nickel and iron in the gases surrounding it, but in proportions that make no sense. The ratio of nickel to iron was so extreme that it defied the conditions expected in any known comet or asteroid. Under normal space temperatures, both metals should remain locked inside grains, impossible to vaporize. And yet, around 3I Atlas, they were suspended in the gas, glowing faintly in emission spectra. To some, it was evidence of extreme internal heat, or a mechanism releasing the metals intentionally. One researcher noted that the pattern looked more like an engineered alloy than a natural blend. Combined with the near-total absence of silicates, sulfur, or common volatiles, the data painted a picture of something more constructed than formed. What if this wasn't debris at all, but a piece of technology, or even an ancient probe disguised as rock and ice, using chemistry to mask its true nature? Then came the coincidence no one could explain. When scientists retraced 3I Atlas's trajectory backward, they noticed it passed through the same region of the sky where the famous WOW signal was detected in 1977. The correlation was staggering. The two sources separated by only a few degrees, a statistical chance of less than 1%. Could it be that the signal and the object are connected? Two events from the same origin, now intersecting across time? And if 3I Atlas truly came from a planet like Mars, could it carry remnants of that world's history, or its creators? Its eerie green glow adds yet another layer to the puzzle, a color produced by no known material in its coma, glowing without a cause. Scientists have yet to identify what fuels it, and the more they study, the stranger it becomes. As it passed near Mars, it brightened again, as if responding to the planet itself, to something waiting beneath the red dust, or perhaps to memories buried within its own metallic heart. As 3I Atlas swept past Mars, every spacecraft orbiting the red planet turned its instruments toward the approaching visitor. What they captured was unlike anything ever recorded in the history of interplanetary observation. The object's coma began to expand unnaturally, forming geometric arcs instead of chaotic clouds, as though responding to Mars's magnetic field. The MAVEN orbiter detected fluctuations in the planet's upper atmosphere, localized spikes of ionization that followed the comet's trajectory perfectly, like invisible footprints in plasma. For a few minutes, Mars itself appeared to shimmer in strange wavelengths, a faint auroral glow not caused by solar wind, but by the presence of 3I Atlas. Then, just as quickly, the readings vanished. The comet continued its flight, unaltered, unperturbed. But something within the Martian atmosphere had changed. Sensors recorded traces of exotic isotopes, metals with ratios impossible for natural processes, falling through the thin air. If this was an accident of physics, it was one no one could explain. And if it wasn't an accident, then the object hadn't merely passed by Mars, it had interacted with it. After the flyby, mission data streamed back to Earth, and then, suddenly, stopped. Several monitoring stations reported that files related to 3I Atlas were flagged as restricted for internal review. For days, only fragments of the data were released, showing erratic energy readings and inconsistent telemetry. Independent astronomers, however, noticed something the official reports omitted: a strange radio echo bouncing between Mars and the object. The echo repeated in rhythmic intervals, its frequency rising and falling in a pattern too deliberate to be static. When decoded as a time sequence, the waveform resembled a spiral, the same mathematical pattern that governs planetary orbits, hurricanes, and galaxies alike. For a few researchers, it was the confirmation they feared most, that 3I Atlas wasn't reacting randomly to Mars. It was communicating with it, or perhaps with something below its surface. Whether that conversation was natural resonance or intentional transmission, the silence that followed felt heavier than any explanation NASA could give. Weeks later, while reanalyzing spectral data from the moment of closest approach, astronomers discovered a phenomenon that left them stunned. During one brief window of observation, the light reflected off 3I Atlas split into two identical spectra, one mirrored against the other. This wasn't a visual artifact. It was an actual duplication of data, as though the object had momentarily generated a twin version of itself in the signal. The twin wasn't visible to the naked eye, but the readings implied an interference pattern between two sources separated by mere kilometers. It was as if the object had replicated its signature, creating a holographic projection of its own reflection. Some proposed a quantum resonance triggered by Mars's magnetic field. Others whispered about dimensional echoes, an advanced technology capable of folding light around itself to conceal its true form. Whatever it was, it meant one thing: 3I Atlas could manipulate observation, choosing how it wanted to be seen. When scientists mapped the object's path through the solar system, a revelation emerged. 3I Atlas's trajectory wasn't arbitrary. It formed a perfect geometric correlation with Mars, Earth, and the Sun. Connecting the orbital lines produced an almost equilateral triangle spanning millions of kilometers, each vertex representing a gravitational node of resonance. Hidden within that geometry was a smaller repeating pattern, a spiral centered on Mars, matching the same ratio found in the WOW signal's frequency intervals from decades earlier. The probability of such alignment being coincidence was less than 1%. It was as if 3I Atlas had followed a pre-calculated route, returning deliberately to a celestial coordinate first marked by a message we didn't understand. Was it guided by remnants of an ancient technology? Was it responding to a beacon we never knew existed? Or worse, was it activating something that had been waiting there all along? As the echoes from the Mars flyby faded, new data from orbiting satellites revealed something even more disturbing. The red planet itself had begun to emit faint, rhythmic vibrations, microscopic tremors repeating every few minutes, detectable only through the most sensitive seismographs. These weren't tectonic or atmospheric. They originated deep beneath the Martian crust, pulsing in perfect synchronization with 3I Atlas's last recorded frequency. The signal wasn't loud, but it was persistent, as though the planet were resonating with something unseen. When mapped, the tremors formed a pattern, 3 concentric rings centered on a single region near Mars's equator. That same area, coincidentally, was where the object had passed closest. Scientists tried to dismiss the phenomenon as coincidence, but private telemetry leaked from the orbiters showed a disturbing correlation. During each pulse, Mars's thin atmosphere slightly ionized, releasing faint electromagnetic arcs visible from orbit. It was as if the planet were responding. Something had awakened beneath the dust, and whatever it was still following the rhythm of 3I Atlas. Days after the pulse discovery, the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter detected new reflective anomalies on the planet's surface. At first, they appeared to be dust storms catching sunlight, but their brightness was too sharp, too metallic. When scientists compared the coordinates, they found several of these flashes forming a straight line that perfectly matched the trajectory of 3I Atlas's passage. High-resolution images revealed something even more perplexing: tiny, geometrically shaped fragments glinting on the sand. They weren't rocks. Their surfaces reflected in uniform angles, and their spectral composition matched the exact nickel-iron ratio found in 3I Atlas's gases. Somehow, during the flyby, fragments of the object, or something it released, had reached the Martian surface intact. They weren't scattered randomly. They were positioned in a linear array, each fragment equidistant from the next. When measured, the spacing followed the same mathematical sequence seen in the WOW signal's frequency intervals. The implication was terrifying. These weren't remnants. They were markers. Then came the night when Mars briefly lit up. Telescopes across Earth, from Chile to the Canary Islands, reported an unexplained green flash emerging from the planet's shadowed hemisphere. The glow lasted only a few seconds, but in that short time, orbiters detected a spike of radiation and a simultaneous burst of radio noise matching the same narrowband frequency once associated with 3I Atlas. The location of the flash corresponded exactly to the area where the metallic fragments had been detected earlier. It was as if the fragments had activated, communicating, synchronizing, or transmitting something back into space. Some scientists speculated that sunlight had triggered a photochemical reaction. Others privately theorized that the objects were part of a larger network, devices that had been dormant until 3I Atlas's approach reawakened them. Whatever the explanation, the timing was undeniable. The flash appeared precisely when Mars rotated to face the region of sky where the object had disappeared, like a coded reply sent into the void. After the flash, Mars went quiet. The tremors ceased, the signals vanished, and all activity stopped, as if someone had turned off a switch. The orbiters detected no remaining electromagnetic emissions, no chemical changes, nothing. The planet had gone perfectly still. Yet deep space antennas monitoring the region beyond Mars picked up something new. A slow, low-frequency hum, coming not from the planet but from the direction where 3I Atlas had vanished behind the sun. The signal wasn't strong enough to trace, but its pattern was unmistakable. The same ratio between intervals found in the WOW signal and the spacing of the Martian fragments. It was as if 3I Atlas had left something behind and was now waiting for an answer. Some within NASA suggested the hum was solar interference, but a few scientists noticed something chilling. The signal's amplitude wasn't static. It was increasing, slowly, steadily, in perfect correlation with Mars's rotation, as if something beyond the sun was listening, and the planet was beginning to reply. As the hum grew stronger, data analysts at observatories worldwide began noticing subtle distortions across multiple communication bands. Satellite signals, deep space probes, even military radar, all began to experience a repeating interference that cycled in predictable intervals. At first, it appeared as static, but when filtered and layered, it revealed a stunning pattern, a waveform shaped like the orbit of Mars itself. Within those oscillations lay smaller harmonics, nested spirals that matched the exact geometry traced by 3I Atlas's trajectory through the solar system. The implication was breathtaking. Whatever was producing the interference wasn't random background noise. It was encoding orbital motion, like a cosmic fingerprint woven into the electromagnetic fabric of space. To test this theory, scientists triangulated the signal's origin and realized something almost impossible. The source wasn't a single point. It came from everywhere along Mars's orbit, as if the entire orbital path had become part of the transmitter. The planet, its atmosphere, and even the fragments scattered across its surface were now components in a network too vast to comprehend. Weeks after the hum reached its global peak, the green glow returned. This time not from Mars, but from deep space. Telescopes detected faint emerald flashes emerging near the same coordinates where 3I Atlas had vanished. At first, astronomers thought it was reflection, a trick of sunlight glinting off cometary debris. But spectroscopic analysis told another story. The light wasn't reflected, it was emitted, pulsing in a rhythm synchronized with Mars's new electromagnetic heartbeat. Each burst lasted exactly as long as a Martian rotation, as if echoing the planet's day. When plotted over time, the flashes formed a waveform resembling binary code: on, off, on, off. But the intervals weren't random. They mirrored the same frequency ratio that once characterized the wow signal. A handful of researchers began whispering the unthinkable. 3I Atlas hadn't simply passed by Mars, it had activated it. The green light wasn't communication in the conventional sense. It was confirmation, a reply from the void acknowledging that the connection had been established. As the green pulses continued, something new appeared in the latest James Webb Telescope imagery. A faint, semi-transparent arc forming in the darkness just beyond Mars's orbit. It wasn't a dust ring or plasma filament. It was geometrically perfect, a smooth curve glowing faintly in infrared. The structure extended millions of kilometers across, its symmetry too exact for chance. When scientists enhanced the image, they discovered the arc wasn't continuous. It was made of smaller nodes, equally spaced, each emitting the same CO2-rich spectral signature as 3I Atlas. In other words, fragments of the object had rearranged themselves into an enormous circular array around the planet. The structure behaved like a lens, bending light and focusing radiation toward the sun in rhythmic bursts. Some theorized it could be a natural resonance effect. Others saw something more deliberate, the beginnings of a Dyson-like mechanism designed not to collect energy, but to redirect it. Whatever it was, Mars was now at the exact center of its geometry, as though the planet itself were being enclosed within a vast, invisible boundary. Then came the event that made even skeptics fall silent. As the array reached full alignment, observatories monitoring solar activity detected a brief but powerful anomaly, a wave of low-frequency radiation that passed directly through the sun's corona and continued outward, straight back along the path from which 3I Atlas had arrived. The wave was coherent, structured, and impossible for any natural source to produce. It carried harmonic layers within its spectrum, mathematical ratios that matched the earlier signals between the comet and Mars. But the strangest part was the timing. Every 37 minutes, the signal repeated itself, each time slightly stronger than before, as though the system were calibrating, learning, adapting. When plotted in 3 dimensions, the signal formed a spiral expanding outward into deep space, a map pointing to somewhere far beyond our solar system. Scientists could only agree on one thing: this wasn't random energy. It was a transmission. Whether it was a message being sent home or a trigger awakening something in the void, no one could tell. But one fact was undeniable. 3I Atlas hadn't just passed through our solar system by chance. It had initiated something, and Mars was now part of it. And then, without warning, everything stopped. The green flashes vanished, the hum dissolved, and the readings from Mars returned to silence. The vast arc that had encircled the planet faded into invisibility, leaving no trace but a whisper of electromagnetic residue. To the naked eye, the solar system was quiet again, but deep in the background, among the static of space, one final transmission echoed outward. It wasn't from Mars. It wasn't from 3I Atlas. It came from the opposite direction, as if something beyond our reach had finally answered. When decoded, the signal wasn't noise. It was structured, a sequence of harmonic ratios that, when plotted in 3 dimensions, formed the unmistakable outline of our solar system. Every planet, every orbit, rendered in perfect scale, except one. Mars wasn't red. It glowed green. It pulsed. And beside it, At the edge of the spiral was a single symbol repeating over and over the same waveform once recorded in 1977, the WOW signal. Scientists now argue over what it means. Some claim 3I Atlas merely awakened a long-dormant natural resonance, a planetary echo that mimics intelligence. Others insist it was deliberate, that the object was a probe returning to a location it had once visited, activating something buried beneath Mars's crust before transmitting home. What none of them can explain is how that final echo, now moving far beyond Pluto, continues to replicate itself in the background of every major radio telescope. The signal is spreading, faint, steady, impossible to block, as if the message was never meant for one planet, but for anyone listening. Perhaps 3I Atlas wasn't an intruder. Perhaps it was a key, unlocking a system that has been waiting in silence since long before humanity learned to look up. Maybe Mars wasn't chosen by chance. Maybe it was the origin. Because if the trajectory, the alignment, and the repeating geometry are not coincidences, then the truth is far more unsettling. 3I Atlas didn't just pass through the solar system, it came home. And now, somewhere beyond the sun, the signal keeps pulsing, growing stronger with each cycle, as if acknowledging our discovery, or preparing for the next phase of whatever began here. So the question remains, was this a message from the stars, or a reminder that the universe already knows we're here? If this story left you questioning what truly lies beyond Mars, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with us, because the next transmission may already be on its way.